folks, Christy here. All right, welcome to day 3 of our 26-day domestic violence awareness mini episode series. All right, let's just dig right in. We're going to dig into something that's way more critical than, well, most people realize, and that's debunking some of the biggest myths about domestic violence. You might think, okay, we've got the internet. How did people still believe in this kind of stuff? Bad information. I know Google is at our fingertips. But here's the deal. Even today, there's still a lot of BS floating around, and that's not just frustrating, it's dangerous. Wrong ideas can really mess up people's lives, and it can leave them feeling even more trapped in a bad relationship. Let me break it down for you. When someone is already going through hell, the last thing they need is to hear bad advice or harmful advice. I mean, like maybe someone finally finds the courage to tell their story, and what do they hear? They might hear something like, well, that's just how relationships are, that's just how it goes. You have the ups and downs. Someone might say something like that, but no, that's not it. That right there is the kind of thinking that just keeps people stuck in that bad, dangerous situation. We've got to get the facts straight because this stuff is literally life or death. We know this. I mean, when the victim starts thinking, well, maybe I am overreacting, or even worse, maybe no one's going to believe them, that would suck. No one should be stuck like that. No one. But if we don't talk about these myths and challenge them, we're just keeping the cycle going. So what's the point to all this? Well, real talk here. It's 2024, and a lot of us probably think we've got this whole domestic violence thing figured out, and I wish that was the case. I really do. But I honestly believe this is one of those topics where we need to keep talking, to keep listening, and keep learning. It's so important. This is about people's lives. It's so important to stay open to new ways to help and, new ways to understand what the survivors are going through. That's the whole point. The whole point is to get the right info out there. Honest information that helps survivors know, hey, they're not crazy and they're not alone. And they do have a way out. That's why little myth-busting moments like this matter so much. I'm going to give you some myths versus facts. These are some popular ones. Okay, the myth. Domestic violence only happens in low-income households. No, that's not true. The fact is that it can affect anyone, regardless of your income. It affects different backgrounds, races, and education levels, and it crosses every demographic barrier, all of them. Though, I used to believe that domestic violence was something that only happened in certain types of households, places where there was like financial strain or some kind of addiction. Maybe, people were struggling to make ends meet and stress was just boiling over. But, the more I learned, the more I realized how wrong that was. And abuse does not discriminate. It doesn't care how much money you make, what neighborhood you live in, or how educated you are. I want to share with you about a time when this is true, when I really looked up to someone. She seemed to have it all together, everything, a successful career, beautiful house, loving family. One day she pulled me aside and she told me she had been living in an abusive relationship for years. I was totally shocked. I would have never have guessed it. Not in a million years would I have guessed that. She shocked me. Because she's the one person who looked like she had it all. She had it all together. But that's the thing about domestic violence. It hides behind closed doors, and it can happen to anyone. That moment, it hit me hard because it made me realize how easily we can overlook the things. Seriously, just because someone looks like they have it together on the outside doesn't mean they're not going through hell on the inside. Abuse doesn't care if you've got money in the bank, if you have a college degree, or if you live in some fancy neighborhood. It crosses every line and affects people from all walks of life. If there's one thing I want you folks to take away from this is that domestic violence doesn't care who you are. It's not just a problem for those people. It's a problem for all of us. We need to be aware. We need to be aware of that so we can support each other better. And it doesn't matter what background we come from. Okay, next myth is if it was really bad, the victim would leave. The fact is, this is super important because honestly, this is a really tough one because leaving an abuse is not only scary, it's dangerous. I know people from the outside looking in sometimes thinks, why don't they just leave? But let me tell you, leaving is freaking hard. And it's not just hard, it can be downright dangerous, life or death. Here's the thing. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the time when someone leaves, someone tries to leave, is actually the most dangerous. The abuser feels like they're losing control, and that's when they lash out the worst. They'll do anything to keep that power. And we're not talking about threats anymore. This goes above that. This is where it escalates and it can be really violent, stalking and all kinds of retaliation. And it's just not the fear of what the abuser might do that makes it so hard to leave. It's an emotional ties, the financial control, the isolation they created. So leaving isn't just about packing a bag and walking out the door. It's untangling yourself from all that fear and manipulation. And sometimes it feels so overwhelming, so impossible. But here's the real deal about domestic violence, especially when it comes to leaving an abusive relationship. It's terrifyingly dangerous. The numbers don't lie, and they're scary. My research shows that trying to leave an abusive partner is often the riskiest time for a victim. We're talking up to 75% of intimate partner homicides happening right when a person is trying to leave or just immediately after they left. That's 75%. Why? Because abusers are losing their grip on that control, and they often lash out in the most violent ways to try to get it back. This is why safety planning is so crucial. You're in this situation, you're at your most vulnerable during this time. You need a solid plan, no winging it. And we'll be learning more about making a safety plan and things like that on some upcoming episodes. Also, professional help, whether it's from a shelter, legal aid, or a hotline, actually all of them. That's the key to getting out safely. So if you or someone you care about is in this situation, don't try to do it alone. Please get support, make a plan, and stay safe. Reach out, like I said, there's domestic violence organizations out there. That's on our website because they know how to handle this. They're the professionals. They can navigate and help you navigate through that danger. And I want to tell you, one of the first podcasts we did was a Barb Frame, and this poor thing covers her story, doesn't it? For you that's been around, listeners, it does. Barb Frame, she had just left. I think it was within like 30 days. They had just signed the divorce papers. It had ended. She was moving in with the children to her new home, starting a new life, getting it together, felt a little bit safer. She wasn't going to get none of those beatings anymore, and the fear, those children wasn't going to live in fear. And he comes, says that they have an attorney meeting. It was an emergency one. She hadn't had a phone in her house yet, so he came and told her, we have an emergency attorney's meeting. And they walked out the door, and nobody has seen her since. And I know it's not that simple because there's no tangible evidence to prove who did it. This was back in 1985. All right, let's continue. So that was dangerous. She had just gotten out and had disappeared. So yeah, if you ever thought to yourself, why don't they just leave? Well, now you know. It's more complicated than it seems. So anyone out there, you're going through this, there's no shame in being scared. Leaving might be dangerous, but staying doesn't mean you're safe either, right? Reach out when you're ready, and there's true help out there for you. Okay, our next myth is domestic violence is only physical. Nope, the fact is, we all know that physical abuse is awful. It's terrible, it's awful. But what about the stuff you can't see, right? Like emotional, financial, and psychological abuse. Because I feel like a lot of people, they don't think that, they think if there's no bruises, if you can't see it, then that's not really abuse. That's not domestic violence. But let me tell you, that's so far from the truth. Because the emotional stuff, the constant put downs, the controlling behaviors, that silent treatment, that all messes with your head just as much as any punch would. And honestly, sometimes the emotional scars, they can stick around longer than a physical scar. I mean, think about it. If someone's controlling your money, you can't make any decisions for yourself. You feel trapped, stuck. Like you have zero control over your own life. And you do. You slowly lose it, little by little. How about when someone's tearing you down, making you feel small? That doesn't just disappear when they stop talking. You can still hear it in your head. It still goes through your brain. Those words linger. And they start to shape how you see yourself. It's crazy. It's crazy how this kind of abuse can just wear you down little by little. Until one day, you're looking in the mirror and you don't even recognize that person staring back at you. It might not leave a mark on your skin, but trust me, it leaves a mark on your soul. So yeah, a reminder, you guys, that abuse comes in all different forms. And just because you don't see a black eye doesn't mean that the hurt and the abuse isn't there. And if you know someone dealing with this, don't downplay it. It's real, it's valid, and they deserve better. You deserve better. Okay, the myth is men are not victims of domestic violence. So here's the thing. Yes, mainly women, the high statistics, it says that women, but men can do experience abuse too. And it's not just as rare as people think. It surprised me. In fact, 1 in 9 men goes through severe intimate partner violence. 1 in 9. That's high, I think. And honestly, that's what gets reported. Think about what doesn't get reported. I mean, they're staying quiet because dealing with it, they're ashamed. They're scared to speak up. Some of you might have heard of Black China, right, out in Hollywood. Well, she's being sued by her ex-boyfriend right now because she allegedly beat him up while he was sleeping. And I saw the pics. They're out there. They're on the internet. On the outside, they seem to have it all together, right? Nice house, successful careers, the whole deal. But clearly, there's some serious issues going on behind those doors. And this isn't her first time. She reportedly did the same thing to that Kardashian, the only boy in the family, Rob, I think they said his name was. She did the same thing to him. And she doesn't just do the physical. She yells and tears down men with her belittling. But what really gets me is that society doesn't take it as seriously when it's a man being abused. It's like we've all been conditioned to think men are supposed to handle it or keep quiet. We got to do better than this, folks. Abuse doesn't care if you're a man, woman, or whoever. And we shouldn't either. We shouldn't either when it comes to helping. If you're a man going through something like this, please know you're not alone. It doesn't make you any less of a man to admit that something's wrong. Actually, I think personally, so does a lot of people, and the professionals say it takes a lot of guts for a man to say, hey, I need help. And you know what? They deserve to live without fear, just like anyone else. And for you women out there listening, let's not forget that this can happen to our brothers, dads, or friends. This isn't just a woman's issue. It's a human issue. And we all need to be a part of the solution. Okay, the next myth is, if he or she hadn't upset me, it would have never happened. All right, let's get real here for a minute. This whole idea that victims provoke abuse, yeah, that's completely nonsense. It's not just wrong, that's dangerous thinking also. Because here's the deal, no one, absolutely no one, deserves to be abused. Doesn't matter what they did, what they said, or what they were wearing. Abuse is a choice. It's a choice made by the abuser, period, end of story. That's it. The whole, they made me do it excuse, oh hell no, that's just the way for abusers, they just are dodging their responsibility. They try to twist things, saying stuff like, well, if they had talked back, I wouldn't have hit them. Or if they hadn't dressed that way, I wouldn't have gotten so mad. It's all about flipping the blame away from them, and it makes the victim seem like it's their fault. But let's be real. That's just them trying to justify their need for that control. And the worst part, that messes psychologically with the victim's head. They start to question themselves, wondering, did I do this? How did I bring this on? How can I change the next time? Maybe if I hadn't done this, it would have never happened. But the truth is, it's not about the victim, right? It's not about what they did or didn't do. It's about the abuser needing that power, plain and simple. Let's stop letting the abusers off the hook with this blame game. Let's hold them accountable. I mean, it's their actions. Hold them accountable for their own actions. And let's make sure the people who are going through this feel supported and not ashamed. Okay, our next myth. Couples counseling can help solve domestic violence issues. No. Let's be real about this one. This one shocked me. The second one actually shocked me, and I thought I knew pretty much a lot about it myself. But let's discuss this one, because I really did. I thought couples counseling would be a part of it, and it just really should. Listen to this. Okay, that's not how it works. Domestic violence isn't about relationship issues. It's not about misunderstandings that can be talked through in therapy. Again, I keep saying this, and I can't even say it enough. It's all about that power, plain and simple. One person controlling, manipulating, and dominating another. Here's the truth, real talk. When abuse is in the picture, couples counseling is actually dangerous. My research tells me that it gives the abuser more ammo. They'll sit there in counseling. They'll go to everyone. They'll be good little boy or girl, listen to the partner open up, and they'll use that information to manipulate and abuse them even further. It's not about fixing the relationship. It's about keeping control, and giving them more insight just tightens their grip. It's dangerous. So let's be clear. Abuse is never a relationship issue that can be solved by sitting down together and talking it out. It will not work. If someone's being abused, they don't need to fix their relationship. They need to get out safely. Therapy might work for in a regular relationship stuff, sure. But when power and control are involved, the rules change. That's a whole different ballgame. The priority is being and getting safe. Not about giving the abuser more ways to manipulate you, more ammunition. Okay, another one. This is interesting. We talked a little bit about this myth. Alcohol and drugs cause domestic violence. Honestly, I just said I used to believe that too, because I grew up in a household where alcohol was a constant issue. And I always thought, okay, if the drinking would stop, maybe the violence would too. I really did believe that the booze was a problem. Up until I just started educating myself and started digging into my own sobriety. Because the hard truth is, it's not the alcohol, it's not the drugs. Yes, it does make and can make things worse, far more worse. It can escalate it, yes. But that's not what causes the abuse. The issue, and I've said it over and over, what is it? Control, domestic violence. It's about one person trying to have power over another. That's real talk. It's not about someone losing their temper just because they've had too much to drink. Now, don't get me wrong, please. I want to say substance abuse can and does make everything a hell of a lot more messier. It can turn things up a notch, make the abuser more unpredictable, more aggressive. I'm not denying that. But removing the alcohol and the drugs alone, and that's a whole new issue. If you've been through that, you fix that too. That alone, but it won't fix the abuse. The abuse will still be there if they haven't dealt with their control issues. It's not likely. It's not likely that sobriety, will suddenly make someone stop needing control. That's not what it says in the research. The control, the manipulation, that's already baked in. With or without the booze, they have that. I had to learn it the hard way. I had to learn it the hard way. And I do that with a lot of things in my life. I choose the hard way, it seems like. In my personal sobriety journey, even when the drinking stopped and the drugs stopped, the control was still there. Because the drugs and the alcohol doesn't create the abuser. It cranks up what already was inside. I learned that. And that's why you can't just treat the substance abuse or the alcohol abuse. You have to expect everything to get better. It runs way deeper than that, folks. Way, way deeper. So if anyone's thinking, if they'd only stop drinking, if they only stop doing the drugs, things would be different, please listen to me. I don't want you to have bad misinformation. That is not true. I want you to know it's not on you, though, okay? It's not even just about the alcohol or drugs. You know that. It's about the abuser, plain and simple. We got to stop pinning all the blame on the alcohol and drugs. I agree, that makes things worse, but it's not the root of the cause. The real issue is the abuser's need for control. That's when real change happens. All right, next myth. Myth. It's only domestic violence if it happens repeatedly, over and over again. No, because domestic violence doesn't have to happen over and over again for it to be serious. Because actually one act of abuse is dangerous. And the impact it leaves can last a lifetime. Just one act of abuse can stay with a person their whole life. We have to stop thinking that it has to be a pattern. You have to look for signs. That's not true. If it happens once, it's already too much. Abuse is abuse, period. You guys, I really appreciate y'all sticking with me today. This was good. I'm glad we got together and we broke down some of the biggest myths about domestic violence. I know this stuff is heavy. I know it is. I feel heavy right now. I'm going to get up here and do some self-care. But it's so important that we talk about it. And here's why. Because we spoke that wrong information about domestic violence is a part of what keeps people stuck in those toxic relationships. The truth is that domestic violence can happen to anyone, anywhere, and it doesn't always show up with bruises. It can be emotional and financial and psychological. It comes in many forms. And sometimes having that right information can make all the difference for someone feeling lost. So if something today hit close to home, or if you know someone who might need to hear this, don't be afraid to share, okay? Start that conversation. The more we talk, the more we break down those walls that can keep the people silent and suffering. Remember, silence is violence. Keeping quiet only keeps the abuser in control. So speak up, stand up, be there for each other. Everyone deserves to be safe and feel safe in their own homes and in their relationships and everywhere. No one should live in fear. And no one should have to deal with this alone, okay? We've got more episodes coming your way. We're going to dive deeper into some more important issues. Tomorrow, we are going to focus on the warning signs of domestic violence. So be sure to come back and listen to that. Again, I want to thank you for listening, folks. Take care of yourselves today. Be safe, and I'll talk to you soon.